Hello and welcome to a special edition of The Big Picture. The Comptroller and Auditor General of India, by his utterances the other day, describing the government's decision-making as appalling, has once again brought back into focus the conflict between the government, political parties and the constitutional authorities. The CAG has been criticized in the past also by those in the government, apart from some others, for stepping beyond its limits by prescribing policy solutions and recommending policy changes. His estimates of losses in the 2G and coal mine allocations have also come in for criticism. His latest statements critical of government's functioning and his comments of brazenness has raised a storm. He has also advocated that both CBI and CVC needs to get a constitutional status for them to be effective. These prescriptions suggested by him have raised objections about him exceeding his limits. The Election Commission has also come in for some criticism about its functioning and utterances in the recent past. So we'll look at all these issues and also the dynamics of relationship between the constitutional bodies and the political executive and the governments in power, while asking the question, are constitutional authorities overreaching their limits? To discuss this, I have with me Sudhir Kumar, former Vigilance Commissioner, Central Vigilance Commission, V.K. Agnihotri, former Secretary General, Rajya Sabha, Amitabh Mukhopadhyay, former Director General of CAG, Vinod Sharma, Political Editor, Hindustan Times, and Vikas Singh, former Additional Solicitor General of India. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Sudhir Kumar, I would like to come to you first. The CAG yesterday mentioned, apart from the controversial statements which he made, he says that CVC is a much feared body, but it doesn't have constitutional say. What does he mean? Do you think, is it a feared body at all? You were there.
CVC is often described as a toothless tiger or a paper tiger or a body which is not very effective. So, I mean, that's the general perception.
So, Mr. Vinod Rai's perception that it's a feared body.
I would surely say, no, it is feared only from the point of view of some kind of a deterrence in the context of grant of vigilance clearances to the officers or the PSU officials for at various stages for promotion, etc. But if you ask me about the effectiveness in terms of taking disciplinary action to effective conclusions in the quickest possible, in the shortest possible time, I would say, well, it hasn't been very effective. If it is in terms of the superintendence over the CBI,
right,
in respect of the anti-corruption cases, I would say there is need for a greater clarity, possibly a clearer amendment in the CVC Act to define what superintendence, what kind of superintendence there should be. So, but then very directly connected with that is also the issue of the quicker disposal of the anti-corruption cases which are taken up by the CBI for investigation.
Right.
You see, CBI may take the shortest possible, a shorter time, although it is hamstrung on account of various issues.
Right.
But still, the disposal of those cases takes a much longer time. And when CAG is talking of actually of empowering the CBI and the CVC, there is some experience behind that. Because the auditor's report is the preliminary inquiry of the violations and deviations that occur in financial management.
Right.
And from there, the CBI and the CVC have to take it forward.
Further, yeah.
And in that, obviously, he must have experienced too, and we have also experienced that there are too many stumbling blocks which delay the disposal, and of course there are vested interests who benefit by delaying the process.
So you agree with him as far as his suggestion that there has to be that both these bodies need to be given a constitutional status?
You see, constitutional status.
My question is, in the existing format or a existing status that the CVC has,
Yeah.
which is a statutory status.
Yeah.
It is not a constitutional
Yeah.
status. Do you think it needs to be given a constitutional status?
You see, whether it is statutory or constitutional is not so material. The point is what kind of powers you have given, what provisions you have made. The CVC Act 2003, I would say, is still tentative.
Okay.
It was an offshoot of the Supreme Court judgment on Vineet Narayan case.
Right.
But actually the guidelines which had been provided in that, they are still to be sort of implemented or incorporated into the Act. So when I say CVC Act 2003 is tentative, there is need for several modifications, and those amendments had been in the pipeline. I think looking at the present situation, it would be important to have
those amendments.
A look at that,
okay.
and then bring about the amendments.
I'll go to Mr. Vikas Singh on this. Mr. Vikas Singh, Mr. Sudhir Kumar's statement that the CVC Act of 2003 needs amendment, needs a relook. In the context, we can't lose sight of the fact that this whole issue has now cropped up again in the context of the CAG statement. So, what is your legal opinion on this? That the CVC requires Act requires those amendments, and what is your view on the constitutional status which is being suggested for the CVC and the CBI also?
Well, the constitutional status which is being suggested will definitely have a benefit, because once you give it a constitutional status, then obviously you give some kind of a security of tenure to somebody who is appointed to that position, and there then will be some provision regarding removal like you have for the CAG or you have for the CEC. So right. I think constitutional status is a good idea for both for the CBI as well as for the CVC. But the more important thing is the method of appointment. The method of appointment should have a system where the best person is picked, and while picking the best person, you have a sort of a committee which has little government control, which has just government sprinkling of the government in the committee, but by and large it should be a committee comprising of eminent people. Could be the Chief Justice of India, or could be including, say for instance, leader of opposition. Similar such people could be sort of drafted onto the committee, and that is most important as far as the functioning of the organization is concerned.
Okay.
And lastly, as far as both these organizations are concerned, the moment you give them constitutional status, then even the other people working in the organization, they also get a security of tenure, that is the people lower down.
Right.
So, it's not as if you can be repatriated to your cadre if you don't toe the line, or if you can be sent there to, do something which the government wants you to do, etc. So, that kind of control also will have to be given up by the government if the government is really serious in wanting these bodies to function fearlessly and independently.
Okay. Mr. Agnihotri, we will keep aside this issue for a moment, and we'll come back to it a little later. I want to probe with you on the issue of the CAG itself. The CAG, there is a lot of criticism about him. The statement itself has brought in a lot of criticism about his overstepping his limits. Do you see that happening? You have been the Secretary General of Rajya Sabha. How much powers does the Parliament have on discussing about these constitutional authorities? And the constitutional authorities, on the other hand, is freely giving out their opinion and things like that. Do you see that as a problem?
Well, in the first place, I would like to ask a somewhat existential question to myself.
Yes.
Put an existential question to myself as to what do you mean by a constitutional authority? Because there is, in my opinion, a taxonomy of constitutional authorities.
Right.
From the President to the Panchayati Raj.
Absolutely.
Anything that is mentioned in the Constitution
are constitutional
authorities. So you have the legislature,
So you think that this whole debate asking for constitutional status itself is is something which is avoidable debate.
So again, you see, there are certain institutions and there are certain individuals by designation.
Right.
So you have legislature, executive,
Absolutely.
Parliament, and the judiciary. Then you have the president, the vice president, the prime minister, and the CAG. And then you have again
election
institutions.
Yes.
Now that is very interesting, and that is something where we have to be very careful.
Right.
And that is the election commission was an individual by designation.
Right.
Now it has become an institution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of certain reasons which we perhaps know or don't know.
Yes.
So that is the basic thing. Then
even CVC was also an individual. Now it is an institution.
Again, all authorities, in my opinion, whether constitutional authorities or other authorities, they must communicate within their jurisdiction. That is my first view. And second point is that these constitutional authorities or authorities, any other authority, must also speak in a particular designated forum, because there are certain restrictions to be put on a person when he is holding an office. And for instance, the ministers, they take oath of secrecy.
Absolutely.
So if it means curtailment of freedom of expression, well, if a few lakh people are not allowed to speak freely because of certain positions they are holding, I have no quarrel with that.
So I mean, even I presume even the constitutional authority like CAG or do they also take oath? Do they take oath of secrecy?
Yes. The president administers.
They take the oath of secrecy. So do you think that by going out publicly about these things, they are violating their oath of secrecy? Would you go to that extent of saying that?
No, because these are very grey areas. The basic thing is that these authorities should exercise certain restraint. And as I said, they must communicate within their framework.
Jurisdiction.
Supposing if the president of India started saying that the election process of the US is of no use, I mean it is very complicated and maybe it is unproductive. Or if the judiciary, if the judges started saying that the selection of ministers is flawed, now there will be a problem. So they must exercise certain restraint.
I think you're missing the wood for the trees in this debate. When CAG is seeking a constitutional status, which it has,
CAG is asking for constitutional status
in the order of precedence,
CVC
a CAG is equivalent to a Supreme Court judge in the warrant of precedence. When these authorities are asking for constitutional status, their sole guiding impulse is that if in future a CVC chief has to be removed, the process will be as complicated and as difficult as that of a judge of a court. That's what they're seeking. Now, I personally feel.
Is it just that?
No, I mean, this is my assessment. I can be contradicted later. It's a debatable point. But this is one of the major things. But my question is, how do you expect?
No, one second. I think he has something to say on this, Mr.
No, because that's taking a very narrow view, and in fact that durability of tenure is already provided in the Act itself.
Absolutely.
You see, the CVC, removal of a CVC, unless he, the grounds of insanity and there also consultation with the Supreme Court Chief Justice is involved. So these protections are already provided. I don't think, you see, I mean, it would not be fair to say that if they are seeking greater clarity about their role and amendment or empowerment, then it is because they want to protect their own positions.
No,
you are saying, you mean that it is not to protect their own position?
This position is already protected for 4 years.
Yeah,
no, you should have allowed me to finish.
Yes, you finished now.
I didn't make my presentation clear.
Okay.
I was on the question that a constitutional status or the lack of it hardly makes any difference insofar as I am concerned. That their charter should be clearly delineated. And in issues of, in situations of dispute and controversy, who shall make them accountable? That has to be delineated. And secondly, there is so much of emphasis put on the modus of appointment and the removal.
Yes.
But no emphasis is being put that one CVC after another,
You're talking of CAG.
is from the bureaucracy.
CAG also.
Here is IAS officers who spent a lifetime in a system They are finally asked to oversee and correct, are made CVCs. Now, may I
You're
ask...
talking of CAG also.
No, listen, all constitutional institutions I'm saying. Because the other day a point was made that the present CAG, and I have full respect for Mr. Vinod Rai, and I'm not trying to cast any aspersions, that until from 2004 to 2008, he was a member of the same government. Now today, he makes a public statement on the government. A constitutional entity or any disciplinary authority with adequate powers to correct the system should not overtly come across as adversarial insofar as the elected regime is concerned. This is my personal view. And what you see from the days of Mr. Sheshan, that he became an adversary of the political parties in the political class. And I was very, very disheartened, to be honest, when I heard Mr. Vinod Rai make the kind of remarks that he did. Maybe the government deserves it. I don't dispute it. But for him to sit in the World Economic Forum and try and seek to win brownie points by deriding the government of the day, I don't think he has added any great value to the institution he holds, to the position he holds.
We will continue. I want Amitabh to bring in Amitabh. Amitabh, you have been the Director General of CAG. You have worked in the system there. You understand the system there. Do you think that the present CAG has overstepped his limits when he talks of, or when he criticizes the government openly, the way in which he has done?
You see, the point being made is about propriety.
Right.
Now, propriety is something which, impropriety, which relates to the expectations of citizens from the holder of an office. Impropriety was an issue when the PM sat on Colgate. Impropriety is an issue when some word has been uttered. But let me make the context clear. If you look at the text of what was going on, there was a question asked by a particular participant in that forum.
Right.
And Vinod Rai said that prior to RTI 2005, the situation was such that decisions were being taken brazenly.
Right.
And that was appalling. After RTI, every official has become conscious of the fact.
And accountable.
And accountable to some extent. Accountability is different from being an RTI or a consciousness about it. You know, we still don't have any accountability in the system. That's my view. In spite of exposures, exposes, media, whatever, reports and so on. So, first, the context must clarify that Mr. Vinod Rai did not actually allude to any of the wrongdoings of UPA 1 or UPA 2. He was basically talking about in the context of the change the RTI made.
It was implied that he was talking about the present government.
No,
but he obviously didn't mention the present
government. I think
government.
this is imputed to him.
Yes.
I think this is mischievously imputed to him, create a debate and so on.
Yeah.
But basically the context there, if you look at the text of it, these things are all recorded, people were present there. So the context will clarify that he was actually talking about the change in administration which RTI brought in. So I don't think this is a very big issue and of propriety or impropriety. The bigger issues of impropriety or propriety are about someone presiding over rampant irregularities for over 6 years. So between deeds and words, I think there should be some kind of distinction.
Yes, Vinod.
No.
Yeah, Vinod.
You see, the problem essentially arises, and every other institution is seeking more powers, a greater, some kind of a higher position in the hierarchy of constitutional entities. You see, because the Parliament as an institution, you see, there is a Supreme Court of India, but the supreme institution in India is Parliament, which is elected after every 5 years. It has become fashionable to deride Parliament. I am all for all powers to these institutions whose job is to correct the system, check graft, combat corruption, all that. But I would personally feel that each time a CAG is appointed or a CVC is appointed, rather than getting appointed by a 3-member panel, 2 of whom agree or all 3 agree or some other method, there should be a regular hearing before a parliamentary committee. And they should be made to ask questions, answer questions. And I am very much against, I'm sorry to say, I'm no disrespect meant for any panelist, that why should the Indian Administrative Service have a monopoly of it? Because they are the biggest contribution to graft and corruption in this country. If the political class
and red tape.
You listen, as a journalist, I would rather go and get briefed by a bureaucrat on an issue than by a politician, because he knows the system. And one who knows the system is the one who manipulates the system, who subverts it also.
Mr. Agnihotri, I think you need to come in here. What Vinod is saying, he's raising a very fundamental issue. I mean, and you have worked the system. You have been in, you have been in the parliament. You have been in the bureaucracy. I think, what is your opinion on this? Do you think what he calls as imposition of the Indian Administrative Service on all kinds of authorities, constitutional authorities, is it a good thing, or is it something avoidable?
No, actually, in my opinion, the parliaments across the world, in different countries, are more powerful than the Parliament of India, in my opinion. Actually, in certain countries, several appointments, constitutional appointments, have to be approved by the Parliament. So long as
in US, all this judicial, they have to go through a process.
So, in my opinion, I mean, what he rightly says, unless, I mean, it is not important whether certain authorities are constitutional or not. It is a system of their appointment, and the powers and functions, autonomy in their functioning that is provided, that is more important, rather than talking about giving constitutional status and all that.
Yes, Mr. Silky.
Actually, I have no quarrel with a more transparent, more broad-based methodology of selection of these people.
What about his point that Indian Administrative Service officers, the same bureaucrats who have worked the system and
corrupted the system.
You see,
sorry,
and may have corrupted or manipulated the system.
One would say that yes, it is collusive, but to place the blame entirely over the set of government officers who may have spent about 30-35 years of their service in the system, that would be unfair. You see, we have spent 41 years, at least give this much of credit to us, that we are capable of figuring out where things had been going wrong. Yes, the system has been prone to manipulation.
Right.
If the general view of the parliament is that, the selection process should be more broad-based, there is no problem. I mean, I have been saying that CVC Act needs an amendment.
Right.
You see, at that point of time, they probably in their own wisdom felt that the selection process should involve 3 people: the Prime Minister, the Home Minister, and the leader of the opposition. You see, later in the Information Commission, it has become still
a larger
body. You can have a larger body for selection.
But what you're trying to say is that it's not really a bad thing to have these people who have worked the system to be in such positions, because you say that they know the system better than anybody else, and so they can fix it. They can fix it.
Complaint. One second.
Yes.
Set a thief to catch a thief.
Yeah.
Mr. Sudhir Kumar. I mean, Mr. Sudhir Kumar is a man of considerable repute, and I greatly respect him. I mean, because we're having a discussion here, so nothing is personal. But has India ever had a tradition? And I say as a journalist, I would like to have had a deep throat in the administration, so that I could also create my own watergates. India, since independence, amongst the bureaucracy, which has been so conservative and so self-preservative, that we haven't had whistleblowers amongst the bureaucracy at all, almost.
Anyway, Amitabh.
And suddenly, suddenly the same person, one of the guys out of the tribe, is culled out and made the CVC, and he will be the chief whistleblower on corruption in this country. It is self-contradictory. We have to be more innovative. If we really want to empower these institutions, we have to give them powers, but then power is wielded as a vice chancellor of Punjab Agriculture University once told Mrs. Indira Gandhi. She said, I've been to many places, but why is it that they have the same equipment, but why is it that the per hectare yield is more in Punjab? He said, what matters is the man behind the plow. What matters is the man behind the plow.
Sir,
Okay, yes, Amitabh.
If I may just, you know, I feel that corruption or character, good, bad, is something which is normally distributed across all fraternities. Whether it is universities,
Yes,
journalists, civil servants, politicians, it's normally distributed across all fraternities.
Evenly,
and
evenly,
and therefore, I would not single out any particular cadre. You see, I belong to the Audits and Accounts Service. So we have had the kind of sentiments which are today expressed about the IAS taking over every position.
Right.
But even though one may have felt that kind of thing, I would certainly say that the IAS has had its luminaries, it has had its leaders, it has done wonderful things, and it has done dastardly things.
So,
National
Highway Authority of India is led by an IAS officer and not by an engineer. I mean, it is, I mean, how do you explain this?
One second,
Agreed.
Mr. Sudhir Kumar, let me get Mr. Vikas Singh in on this. He's been, Mr. Vikas Singh, I'm sure you must have been hearing what is happening here. The question has now come to the kind of appointments, the kind of people who should be manning these kind of constitutional bodies, and so where do you stand on this issue?
I missed out a little bit of what happened in between because my audio was lost. But I'll tell you something on the functioning of the CAG and which was the earlier part of your debate.
Yes,
this ultimately manning has to be done from the people who are in position. So I just want to comment on that. When the CEC, when Session took over as CEC and he, started exerting powers which were, normally thought to be beyond his jurisdiction.
Right.
I think that he was fully justified in doing so because the powers of the CEC are plenary. He can do everything and everything under the sun which is necessary to conduct a free and fair election.
Right.
There are no fetters that the Constitution has placed on his powers as far as the CEC is concerned to conduct a fair election. But the CAG is a very different constitutional body. A CAG is to function as the Parliament asks it to function. The CAG's work is to be defined what the Parliament wants it to be defined. The CAG's work is basically to make a recommendation to the government as to what it feels about the finances of the government. Now, for instance, as far as the 2G is concerned, now the CAG says there is a presumptive loss of 1,76,000 crore.
Yes.
Now, if you were to analyze this loss, I mean, you see, the government in its wisdom may want to give spectrum to the people in the industry because the industry will definitely pass it on to the consumers because firstly it's a regulated industry, secondly it's a competitive industry.
Absolutely.
Now, if the CAG says all this money should come to the coffer of the government, it will not go back to the telecom sector by any chance. It will be distributed amongst all the sectors. So the telecom sector will definitely lose by virtue of this collection of so much money into the coffers of the government. Now, this is not something which the CAG can comment upon. And the disbursal of government money to the public, people have seen how poor it is, how badly it reaches. 10%, 20% only reaches the actual public when any kind of beneficial measure is taken by the government. So, to say that the CAG is the last word on such matters and for the CBI to start something on the basis of the CAG, according to me, is completely fallacious. It is not in our constitutional scheme.
Okay, I think Mr. Vikas Singh, that's a very
CAG is just to make a report to the...
Mr. Vikas Singh, I think you raised
the CAG is just to make a report to the Parliament, and the Parliament is and the CAG should not be allowed to make public its report directly to the press. Only when the Parliament considers the report of the CAG that the report should come in the public domain.
Mr. Vikas Singh, please stay on. I think you have raised very important issues. We need to discuss this, especially about those issues which you raised about leaking reports and things like that, and there are other issues involved. We will discuss this, but we need to go into a short break now. Please keep watching. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back. in the context of the statement made by CAG, Mr. Vinod Rai recently, we are discussing our constitutional authorities overstepping their limits. Mr. Amitabh, in fact, I would like to continue what Mr. Vikas Singh was talking about, the powers of CAG.
Yeah.
You know, the powers of CAG, he says that the powers of CAG is limited to them auditing the thing and giving the report to the parliament and be done with it.
Unfortunately, the mind of a whole lot of us who were brought up in a post-colonial kind of situation and education is that our constitution was framed on the lines of Western democracies and this and that. The brilliance of an Ambedkar has been lost on us. Ambedkar was very emphatic that the separation of powers between the executive and the legislature will not be adopted in India. And the reason for that was, he said that in the US, the president and his secretaries are part of the government, are part of the executive, but they are not allowed to be part of the Congress. In India, we have in the draft constitution, that's what he presented, he argued that because we need more responsibility rather than stability, therefore, we must opt for a system in which there is no separation of powers between the executive and the legislature. I'm sure in the working of different institutions there could be separation, but the fact is, or the important part is, that the executive or the Council of Ministers is born out of the parliament. They are members of parliament.
Right.
Now, the idea is that every citizen has a right to comment on policy. Every citizen, in fact, has a duty to comment on policy.
That's interesting.
Just a minute. The constitutional authorities, their views must, in ordinary norms of legislative drafting, the views of constitutional authorities, of judges, judgments, etc., and CAGs must be studied before framing a legislation. The Council of Ministers brings it to Parliament. The Council of Ministers, unfortunately, is not the executive. Let me make it very clear for those who actually confuse it with the executive. The executive power of the country vests only in the President. Article 53 categorically makes it clear.
I think you're being very technical. I think Amitabh, that is very technical saying that.
No. Policy means the law. Policy means the law of Parliament under delegated authority. The Council of Ministers acts.
No, but
this
my
is
question
very important to our constitutional
But Amitabh, you
working.
answer my question. As the CAG, when he makes these kind of statements on issues of governance,
Everybody can. Everybody can and should be encouraged to.
What are you are trying to say that he is only using his authority or right as a citizen?
He is only using his authority and a right as a citizen because he is not there in an auditorial position. So he is not exercising functions under Article 48 to 51.
If he says that the government's functioning is appalling, they are using brazen methods.
If he were to say that, he has not said that, but if he were to say it in this fashion, like I would say it, then also I would say that World Economic Forum is a deliberative forum.
And
it is not Parliament, it is not PSC, it is not his office.
So he has not violated any spirit of the office which he holds, I think. That's what he's saying.
Not just the spirit. Please understand, we cannot talk only about the propriety and impropriety of organs of state among themselves. This whole philosophy where each one has Lakshman Rekha and this, that, this is built on a very elitist understanding of democracy.
Mr. Agnihotri, elitist understanding. What you're talking is elitist understanding. It's built on elitist understanding. But he has every right to, in any constitutional authority, is also a citizen of India and he has every right to express his opinion.
No, I don't agree there because I think, as I already said, that authorities, forget about constitution, other authorities, they have to have certain restraint. They have to communicate based on the framework of their jurisdiction. And use fora for expression of their opinions in a given manner. You see, even the CAG...
World Economic Forum was not the right forum for him to make this.
CAG has the right to speak to the parliament.
Right.
Now, how many CAGs have tried to use that power rather than going to the forum? You see, in the public mind, They don't make this distinction that I am the CAG, but I am speaking as a private citizen. That is very difficult for the common man to distinguish.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the media.
The media will not distinguish.
No, I'll tell you my personal experience. As Rajya Sabha Secretary General, I had half a dozen channels coming to me, asking me what happened in the house today, please tell me. I said, go and ask the people in the house what they did.
Yes.
Not come to me. We would like to take your interview, this, that. I said, please wait for another 6 months and then I am free, man, then you can come. Nobody has come. So nobody would have gone to the CAG or anybody else who is in a public authority to talk about things which he can say as a private citizen.
But that's a very interesting thing what you pointed out. This issue we need to flag here. See, why is it that these kind of authorities who earlier in the past would normally be very quiet, would not interfere in the functioning of the government or come out openly like this, why are they talking like this? What is the context in which they are talking? What is the atmosphere in which they are talking? So is there, there is some problem with the government also, the people in authority.
You see, first of all, the basic problem is the government's credibility is low.
Right.
And when the government's credibility is low, other institutions tend to become assertive. Sometimes rightly, sometimes out of overzealousness.
Absolutely.
CAG is a great institution. But CAG was also once headed by a man who became member of the BJP.
Right.
So let us not say that these are institutions that can't be commented upon.
No, we have had Chief Justice of India becoming members of
members
the party.
and judiciary. And from the judiciary.
Yes.
From the Election Commission.
Right.
Now, my short point is as follows. The world over, there is this debate about speaking judges. That judges should say, the court should say what they want to say in writing. But, in the course of the hearing, judges make certain remarks that make headlines. And nobody wants to sort of regulate the media's coverage. Even the Supreme Court did not want to do it after a long hearing. They said we would at least, at best, we can go for deferred telecast of our proceedings rather than putting a ban on that, which is very good because we need free speech in this country. But then every freedom has a reasonable restriction. And at least a constitutional authority should appreciate that. A constitutional authority should appreciate that there is a reasonable restriction on its powers and on its freedoms.
Are you suggesting that the entire country does not believe that there are brazen problems with policy making?
Boss,
are you suggesting that the country doesn't feel that?
Amitabh, 1 second. Yes,
CAG has to be like a politician or the opposition who articulates the feeling.
I want to bring Mr. Agnew.
I'll put two of you together. One is the reasonable restrictions on the freedom. Other is that nobody should be prevented from saying that there is brazenness in policy making or decision making. Now, only thing is, the constitutional authority should give examples and not make sweeping statements.
Sweeping statements. I think that's a very interesting point with Chairman. Yes, Mr. Sudhir Kumar.
You see, just 2 or 3 points. One was, the other panelist had mentioned about the CAG's role.
Right.
His responsibility, that it is auditing and then reporting to the Parliament. I presume it is not just that.
That is interesting. I'm glad you raised that issue now.
So, that is where I would have actually liked a greater clarification to be given. That he is really looking into, the auditors are looking into the manner of spending the money. And therefore, it goes into the whole contract system and so on and so forth, how the public funds have been utilized.
Right.
Now, where possibly you can blame the CAG for sort of crossing, for not being so discreet. But it has been pointed out as to in what context he has mentioned about empowerment of CVC and CBI.
Right.
My presumption is that this comment is arising out of an experience as to what kind of fate sort of occurs to the auditors, the auditing or the auditors' reports. You see, sometimes the investigation, registration of an offence is followed by auditing. Sometimes auditor's report becomes the basis for a criminal investigation or prosecution.
And
Now
you,
here,
when you
there
were in
is-
the Vigilance Commission,
Yeah.
did you come across such cases where you took forward what the CAG has done?
Yeah, any number. I mean,
Yes.
there is a regular actually interaction and exchange of views that goes on.
And
Now-
that's a healthy thing.
Now, that is professionally required.
Required
That's a professional requirement, both for the CBI as well as for the CVC.
Right.
Now, the other point, you see, why do people speak out of turn? You know, here you can possibly say that it is the RTI which is also putting the public and the media pressure. You are talking constantly about corruption. Now, everyone says India is a corrupt country. There is a very high level. Now, therefore, these bodies, their functioning come under scanning.
Scan.
And then they have to respond. I mean, not just through the normal.
So are you trying
official
to
channels.
are you trying to say that these statements are a reflection of their own frustrations?
Sometimes, you see, they
of
have
their-
to also explain as to, I mean, if CVC is not so effective, CVC has got to point out that, you see, we are hamstrung by
these things.
By these
I
things.
know about this function of the CAG. I would like to go back to Mr. Vikas Singh. Mr. Vikas Singh, you made a statement that the functions of CAG is limited to auditing the accounts of the government. There was an office memorandum of 2006 issued by the same government which gave authority to the CAG to do a performance audit also, which is very interesting that a member of that same Congress party or the government who is now a minister wrote an article recently rubbishing that office memorandum. He said that this office memorandum should not have been issued. So what is your view? See, this office memorandum maybe doesn't carry the weight of a legislation, but that is now in vogue.
Even if there is an office memorandum which, permits the CAG to do a performance audit, even then, the audit of the CAG is normally with a tunnel vision. It can't be having the policy issues in mind and to look at the larger, like for instance, coal or for instance, telecom. These are highly specialized areas, and for especially telecom is an area where, the world has not had experience of how to deal with telecom. So when telecom was, taken as a commodity for the first time by the government, you had to learn by experience as well. Now you do an auction of 3G.
Spectrum was an
which is
unknown
a
commodity.
value-added, meant for high-end customers, and it's coming to for the first time in the market. And that valuation you take back to say that this is the loss which was caused in 2G. It's like, saying that you had given a cinema hall 10 years back in an area at a particular price, and today a multiplex has come and the multiplex is auctioned in that area and it fetches a very good price, and you say, no, the cinema hall has been given for a song. Now the cinema hall may have come at a time when there was nobody living there. So you wanted cinema hall so that people will be attracted to live in that area. So you give that land for almost for free. And now the area has developed, now you build a multiplex there. So that's how the CAG has, gone wrong in a situation like this.
Okay.
You can't decide. Tomorrow the government may say that particular road I will not charge toll. And on a particular road where the movement is of more of the industry, etc., and where industrialization has taken place, I'll charge a toll. Can the CAG say that no, you've committed a loss because if you had charged a toll
Okay,
in that other
Mr.
which the government decided to
Sir,
make
allow
it
me to put it
Amitabh,
to you.
Amitabh,
Marxist area, etc.
Mr. Vikas Singh, let me get Amitabh.
And in the performance audit, CAG is actually...
No, okay, let me get Amitabh on this. I got your point, Amitabh.
You see, I would like to ask you, sir, would you say the same thing about the Supreme Court judgment of Mr. Ganguly when he was the Chief Justice, or of the decision given by the Supreme Court on a reference by the President, which also held that telecom must be auctioned? After all, they are just judges and lawyers, so what would they know about telecom?
The Constitution bench, let me clarify. The Constitution bench did not deal with telecom. They did not deal with
But
telecom
it has-
because if it had dealt with telecom, the reference would have failed.
No,
No, it has not dealt with telecom at all. It has
the
said, I will
judgment
not comment on
clarifies.
telecom.
The judgment
Constitution
clarifies
bench-
that there is a telecom
You
thing.
see, the judgment on telecom remains
No, sorry,
as
sorry,
it is.
sorry. The judgment
But
only
they
says
distinguished between
yes,
spectrum
the-
and
yes,
other
the-
resources and said that revenue generation
Can I
cannot always be
respond to this?
the prime motivator, and then many things have to be done by the government of the day in popular interest, in public good, and that is the distinction they made. Now, but may I say one thing, that while one respects the, there are two kinds of democracies, popular democracy and institutional democracy. And institutional democracy has to be respected because the institutions have the installed capacity to judge on issues. But look at the unfortunate bit in this country, that in this country, even the you won't listen to the Space Commission, you would not listen to the nuclear scientists who are saying, oh, that plant is safe. Even the former president is saying that plant is safe, and yet the people are protesting on the ground. The problem is, let us try and respect both forms of democracy, but not allow issues that are serious, complex, and require a greater study to be placed in the public domain, which perhaps happened when a CAG, sitting CAG, rises to the bait.
Okay.
I don't
No,
think there was
Amitabh,
any
one
rising
minute.
to the bait. No,
No,
I must
Amitabh,
answer
one
this.
minute.
You see, I agree with you that institutional democracy also has a great amount of importance for any democracy. But please remember that an institution is not just a hierarchical organization. It actually refers to norms and standards. Now, where are the norms and standards when somebody is talking about the norms and standards or brazenness in policy making? Then he's making a point.
Amitabh, 1 minute. Amitabh, 1 minute. Let me get Mr. Agnihotri on this. Mr. Agnihotri, there is a very interesting argument here. They say that here is a constitutional authority who goes and says whatever he feels, which I'm sure whatever he thinks that whatever he's saying is in the interest of the larger interest of the country. He thinks, I'm sure. But when politicians have to discuss these constitutional authorities, when I mean politicians, I mean elected members of parliament, when they have to discuss these constitutional authorities, what are the restrictions they face? Let us say they have to discuss them in the Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha. What are the restrictions they face?
Actually, you would be surprised that the kind of restrictions that are prescribed by the parliament for themselves are so great that you don't have that kind of restrictions elsewhere. For instance, they cannot speak when somebody else is speaking. All those lot of things are happening in parliament.
Somebody who is not present in the house, they can't. But this, especially the discussion about judiciary or CAG or things like that rarely happens in the house.
Not only that, in terms of admitting matters for discussion, if it is a report of the CAG, then unless it is laid on the table of the house rather than leaked into the press, it cannot be taken up. Number two, even if it is taken up, then it has to be taken up on a substantive motion. So there are a lot of regulations and rules that have been prescribed. Actually, I am quite surprised that those kind of restrictions the parliament has placed on itself in terms of discussing matters.
May I point out one thing? Justice, the former Chief Justice, who is an authority on income tax law and matters relating to finance,
Justice
Kapadia, made a comment. He says, while a profit is a fact, the loss is debatable.
Absolutely.
And this loss cannot be notional. I mean, the interpretation is the loss cannot be notional. Now, when I read the reports, and of course, money has been made in 2G, money has been made in coal, everywhere. But when I read the report, I got a feeling, as a dispassionate, and as a journalist, I'm a bit conservative as a journalist. For instance, if I was the sole journalist in this country, I would not have run that figure. Because that figure was too astronomical. And it is physically impossible for any institution, any political party to make that kind of money and keep it somewhere. You see, and you said it is a notional loss of 1,60,000 crores. It is this notional loss that you calculated makes me feel that there has to be some innate restraint. You can say that there's been huge losses.
Okay, and let me get Vikas Singh on this.
Amitabh, 1 minute.
Yes, Mr. Vikas Singh.
It is notional.
No, but the point is
that
you
wanted to say something on this. You wanted to react on what the...
Yes,
Vinod
can
said.
I just come in?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, on the loss, if you ask me, the spectrum was given to everybody in line at the same price. So why will somebody pay the government any extra money if it is being paid at the same price, to be given to everybody at the same price, and that too in an order? It's to be given in an order in which you had applied.
No, Mr. Vikas Singh,
So if everybody is to be given the loss, maybe even if there is a...
No, but
even if there
Mr.
was
Vikas
a,
Singh,
even if
Mr. Vikas Singh,
there was a loss, as they say,
Mr. Vikas
there
Singh,
can't be any profit.
we are not getting into the details of that either 2G or coal. We are discussing a broader issue, Mr. Sudhir Kumar. The fundamental question which we are trying to raise today is that overstepping of the limits, these authorities overstepping their limits. How do we draw those limits?
What overstepping?
Are they overstepping? First of all, you think that, you know, when CAT
And
talks
which
like this,
authorities?
when CAT comes out in the open and talks about it, Amitabh thinks that he's not doing anything wrong. You know, he has a right as a citizen to talk.
But
Mr. Agnihotri has a very different
specific. I mean, when you say authorities, means is it?
You were also a constitutional authority, I presume, when you were
Statutory, yes,
statutory authority when
yeah.
you were a vigilance commissioner.
Yeah.
Would you have dared to talk in this fashion about what is happening within the government or within your organization
so
and things like that?
The case in question is only of the CAG,
Right.
isn't it? And CAG.
We also have complaints about, you know, election commissioners sometimes overstepping their limits. We have had this kind of
No, but I think
situation.
election commission, let's not get into this.
No, let me not
Over
get
the
into
years,
this.
it is
Today it is
seasoned
a
as
change.
an institution. CVC has been very seldom in a controversy.
Yes.
I cannot think of a CVC who has overstepped or who has overstated his case. I mean, they work quietly
Yes.
and they're effective.
Yeah,
You see-
that's why I want him to.
You see, that's it. When you say they are effective, I would say thank you very much. And I would feel extremely happy if that is the perception. But the perception is different. I mean, it is here only that one of the panelists said, "Oh, CVC is a paper tiger," which is, I mean, I frankly accept that. You see, if we take too long to dispose of cases, if those cases take, I mean, if very strong cases, in fact, turn into an infractuous exercise.
Mr. Sudhir, Mr. Sudhir Kumar, I have one minute.
I
I have a point which I want all of you to respond to it. See, are these expressions which are found, objectionable by especially the political parties or the governments in power when these kind of statements are made against the government? Obviously, government in power will feel that it is objectionable. But are these statements only an expression of their frustration about the working of the system, or can you attribute any motive to it?
No, I think, you see, his statement with respect to the CVC and CBI is coming out of, is a result of empathy, maybe.
Empathy, okay.
Empathy, which is because he has seen, what plagues us.
Okay.
And therefore he
you will
there is
just
need
one
for
second.
empowerment.
Okay.
I mean, he is carrying the case.
So you
forward
don't see any motivation behind this kind of statements.
I don't.
Okay,
think
okay,
so.
Amitabh.
Just one point before Dr. Agnihotri gives us some of his knowledgeable views. I just want to point out that I believe that there is a difference between constitutional authorities and other offices or authorities. The difference is this, that the Constitution in its skeletal form would include those constitutional positions. Expenditure over those constitutional authorities is also charged on the Consolidated Fund of India, so there is a clear difference. Number two, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, in the context of CAG, made a very, very important statement from the chair in the Rajya Sabha when he said that the CAG serves the nation, and therefore many things that they may say which we may find unpalatable should not be criticized ever.
Okay, on that score. Yes, Vinod, I'll come to you. Mr.
Yes,
Agnihotri.
only 2 points I want to make.
Right.
One
We
is
are
that, as I've
at the end of the show. This is the last.
As I've already said, that the authorities, whether constitutional or otherwise, should raise a discussion or debate in a particular forum. And therefore, as has been mentioned by some of this thing, the judges write judgments, the CAG writes a report, and he can come to the press and say that, yes, this is in my report, this is what I am saying. And therefore, making sweeping comments is very unfortunate. And it is, again, let me tell you, it is only, I mean, we have had so many CAGs. So there's a lot of controversy that has been. So once in a while it happens, so it doesn't matter. But if that thing happens and continues to happen, then the parliament will take note. There may be legislation which may bring in restrictions and which will not be good for the country.
At the end of it, it will not be good. Yes,
this is largely happening that because, you see, first of all, you brought RTI. But I think that we put the cart before the horse. Before bringing RTI and empowering people and making the whole thing transparent, there should have been institutions in place for quick disposal of grievances or information that arose from RTI. And I think, you see, in this country, bureaucracy is short-staffed, inefficient, not adequately trained. In this country, there is a huge backlog of cases in the judiciary. So you need judicial reforms. Absolutely. You need some administrative reforms, and you need to have a system that matches the popular aspirations.
I think we have come to the end of the program. I mean, now I don't think your wish that maybe RTI should have come later. There's no way. I think that process can be reversed now. The fact of the matter is, I'm sure everybody agrees that there has to be a quick grievance redressal system. But anyway, this debate clearly comes to the conclusion that constitutional authorities need to be they have to keep the certain jurisdiction, but also in the context of a more and more open society, a more and more transparent society, maybe there should be tolerance of such comments by various authorities. The government also needs to look at it from the perspective and the context in which it is said. Anyway, this discussion is something which needs to be kept alive so that the institutions in this country will get stronger. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. Vikas Singh, Mr. Sudhir Kumar, Mr. V.K. Agnihotri, Mr. Vinod Sharma and Amitabh Mukhopadhyay. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on The Big Picture, same time on Monday.